Welcome everyone to another episode of Price Targets with your host Bitcoin Jack. Welcome back. It's Monday. I was gonna do this on Sunday yesterday, but we're doing it today, and I think it's good news because now we know what's going on with China and the US. They are in a 90-day 90 pause of the tariffs, which kind of unleashed a bit of a bullish move last night, at least in the ES, and then obviously, we're looking at a very steep sell-off on gold today. But let's just jump straight in. I want to touch upon Backpack. Backpack is a really, really great exchange. I honestly been loving to trade there. And, I will be moving more and more of my assets there to trade. You will get 20% of your fees if you sign up with my ref link. That's half my commission. So I'm sharing half my commission with you guys. So if you sign up, you're going to enjoy lower fees, which over time will add up. So go to Backpack Exchange, use my ref link and sign up, and you will enjoy that immediately. If you signed up previously on my ref link, you will also get the 20% off your fee. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is where I'm again in a little bit of a pickle with Bitcoin. We had the weekly buy signal. We discussed last week that we needed to hold the 93 range, and we kind of did. I did even post something on Twitter that it would be bearish if we would go below the zone here. We didn't. It reached up and then it started to motor up. So that's bullish. But at the same time, last week we spoke about the resistance, the weekly resistance here. We drew this line, and look where we're at. So I guess that this is a little bit of a resistance area. If we're bullish, we should at least go above this, right? And then continue. Then we'll have to break out. I'm not entirely sure. I should add a line. Put it there. So that's our weekly structure. And it's being resistance for now. So the only logical thing I can do, which is to hedge my exposure. Obviously, I have a ton of ETH, and ETH is giving the stop out signal if you've been short on the larger weekly trend. So essentially, it's saying that you should no longer be short after being short for a increasingly painful but long time. That's over. So it's kind of your biggest signal here. We spoke about it last week and the weeks before. ETH can double out of nowhere, purely because it's been shorted so much. It's really mechanical, and I think to do a wild guess, I think like at least this area is completely, it's just bonkers that this happened. So in my opinion, it should at least recover from the period from February into now. But honestly, like, you have a weekly level here, and it's kind of hard to see through the coloration of the candles, but the up candles have a little blue line around them. There's a weekly block here, obviously, but if you watch it on the monthly, it's pure empty air into the 0.35s region. So it may be a little lower, 0.31, 0.35, but I think with what's going on currently, that's our aim. So a little bit of resistance here. Eventual target should be up here, and that's just going to be extremely beautiful. On the lower time frames, we have our buy signal. Both the composite here down here is bullish, and the momentum algorithm here is bullish. So I expect that, do a little pause, continue to the 0.27, and if we can manage to blast through that, it's just going to be an insane further unwind. Beautiful stuff. If we look at ETH USD, the this is just an insane trade. Um, After a lot of pain, obviously, which we tried to hedge through with shorting Bitcoin or getting into some cash positions elsewhere. I really wanted to be long on the ETH, and it's paying off big time now. We're having a little bit of a fade signal here on BTC USD. So, in my opinion, together with the fact that this is the weekly level here that we just drew, it's probably a good time to be cautious on the cautious side again. And then I'm gonna skip to SPX for a quick moment and then come back to that later. But this is, I really thought that this was gonna work out, and there's people who said, no, no, Jack, you gotta kind of wait until we really run these highs here. We have the good news of the trade tariff pause with China. So maybe there is a potential hypothetical here that we bottomed on the trade tariff fear, and that we're going to top out on the trade tariff solution or the pause, and then 3 months pause. So that's June, July, August. Now it turns out that I've been, talking about August for a long time as a main area in time where I expect volatility to return to the market. And generally volatility, when I say volatility, that's downside, right? There's a good upside trend, there's little volatility, everything is just, going up a few percentages every day or a couple every week. But when you slam to the downside, usually it's when you slam to the downside where you kind of increase the spreads and the volatility. I got stepped out, obviously, of my ES hedge, but I might try and see whether I want to re-enter that as we go into the end of this month. And I think, generally speaking, larger picture, June onwards should be a period of just, boring market, maybe downside volatility. But it's just a period of time where, well, unless this outlooks really changes, where I want to stay defensive on, equities, and maybe even BTC. Though BTC is, what's happening here? BTC is looking great, just got to be careful around this key level here. So I don't always kind of trade because I think something is going to happen, but just generally because the odds say that it can happen, and it's an opportune moment to kind of de-risk because it's relatively cheap to do so. Plus, I have the exposure on ETH, and then we must jump to Farcoin because I've been talking a lot about Farcoin, and this is the daily chart. To me, this feels like it's missing a blow off top, right? This is just a very nice, gentle, kind of upsloping trend, but it hasn't gone full crazy yet, right? It's more like, to me, it feels like vertical accumulation. And then we have, let me clean up this a little bit because, yeah, no, there we go. You have the two levels here at 1.27, 1.28. To me, kind of signaled for last week. Like last week's video, I said like we had the sell off here, and then we started to come down here. I said like if we reclaim the zone here, in my opinion, that's bullish. We're kind of stalling here, which makes me a bit hesitant on that opinion. It creates a little bit of if you look, but it's, there's no reason to think currently that this momentum has topped. It just looks like a continuation of it without a blow off top, which is logical to assume is going to happen on an asset like that. It's a shitcoin. There's people love the coin, everyone thought hot air rises and there's gas left in the tank, blah 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 blah. It's a really funny meme, um, and I'm here for it. So I don't know. It kind of feels like this needs to at least go test. Let me turn this on. Go retest the 0.69 or maybe even all the way to this 0.745, 0.786 region. You have the daily level here, which, if I recall correctly, it's also the weekly level. Let's go and see. Yeah, so here, that's the weekly level. It's a bit of an extreme target maybe, but honestly, it's just, extending whatever is going on here. If you measure this to this and then you add it here, it's kind of like, the 1-to-1 ratio or maybe the 1.236 extension. That's not really a weird thing to happen when you trade parabolic blow-off tops. So let's see. Really like that one out there. I took a bag of Pengu because DJ told me to do so. So and honestly, this job, doesn't look all that bad. It's kind of iffy out, every time this happens where it kind of stalls above the breakout and then doesn't do anything. But that's honestly the same what Filecoin is doing right now. So that might end up like a ugly where we're gonna come and retest the mean of the trend here. Maybe dip a little bit below it and then continue. But in general, this this looks good. It's a buy. It's been a sell. You gotta figure in that when you look at trade charts like this that they are, well, you gotta imagine they're like weekly charts basically if you look on the daily, because that's how things go. Like if you want to account for volatility and you want to change your mindset on how the volatility works, just got to imagine you're trading a weekly chart here. So that's a huge sell-off, like a really long bear market, and it's gaining the levels. Um, Here, level gained. And instead of coming down, it gained another level. And instead of coming down, it gained another level. And instead of coming down, it gained another level, etc., etc. So this looks to me as a good contender to for some upside. It's a real shitcoin, obviously. I have no idea what it does. I believe it's a penguin, and can't make much more out of that. But look, if we're going to be in this kind of environment, I'm not really the guy to play these kind of things, but Bitcoin is still performing great, and then you have ETH that shut up so hard that you kind of have to consider that you're in an environment where there's going to be profits flowing from these moves. So you own a ton of ETH, and ETH made a ton of money, and then you kind of take profit at some point on ETH, and then everyone's going to rotate. And the bad thing is that the disbelievers will eventually, come in near the top, and backhold this kind of stuff all the way down again. But there's still quite a bit of disbelief out there, in my opinion, and a lot of people are looking at pullbacks, for example, on ETH. But I just don't. At this point, there you must realize that it's yeah, there's a lot of unwind in ETH for at least a short term, like next couple of weeks. So yeah, Fartcoin, concluding, I think it can go really vertical within a couple of days once it starts to break out of this, in my opinion, vertical accumulation. Um, okay, well, thank you. The session disconnected. Um, let me do one thing and find my laptop And turn that thing off. Just turn off the Wi-Fi. This is gonna keep happening. Thank you. I'm also running out of coffee here, so we need to hurry up. All right, that's done. So it's you don't really have the chart that's coming in front of it, but if when you see this this region here, I always imagine that the chart looks like something like this, and we're at a similar stage, so we can assume that we're at least gonna go and try and do these levels here, and there is the crazy situation where it's gonna make new all-time highs, and then yeah, it's going to be a pain to kind of hold on to it. I'm not going to hold on to it because that's it's just not the way I like to trade these things. And obviously, fundamentally, there is nothing to be gained here. And I'm no Murat, and it's painfully cringe to watch his videos as of late. So yeah, I'm not really going to be that guy. This is a chart that we need to go to. Gold, we did talk about it last week, and now here's the difficult thing in kind of finding out what we're dealing with here, because essentially I said we're having this kind of move here. It's like 3 ways up, and this latter part here from 29 to 35 was quite parabolic. Let's say that like that. So there is, like we said, the chance that this kind of creates this complacency shoulder where this move, this last move, the third move up, becomes truncated. And usually that truncation happens off the 0.786, 745, the 0.69, or the 618, right? So how perfectly, near perfectly, that kind of hit the 786 level, and now it's coming down. Obviously, this is because of the trade agreement that has been reached, which signals to people that there is less of a divide to be expected in the short term, and everyone who longed gold for that specific reason is going to take profit, and that's currently what's happening. So I don't know if this is going to start its larger correction that I drew here. It's very possible it's going to do that, and I've said on Twitter, and I stand by that any significant sell-off on gold is going to be one for buying, because even though Bitcoin is a very interesting as a digital reserve asset, gold is going to be the main thing to be working with, because at they need to be able to figure out their security, like find a way to secure the gold is something we already did. But then find a way to secure the Bitcoin, because it's a digital asset. It's going to require some risk assessments and some novel thinking in governments, because obviously we don't really trust them with it, and it's good that they won't really trust themselves with it. So, like the scarce asset reserve that every country should be building, and some are, should, in my opinion, consist out of a mix out of gold and Bitcoin. Bitcoin will, even if that mix is like 20 to 80 or 30 to 8 30 to 70%, that's going to benefit Bitcoin massively, simply because it's much smaller than gold is. But yeah, I think even though the tariffs got paused, there is rising tension. We're dealing with a situation in the world where we're going to be contending the world dominance in over the next 10 years, and owning scarce assets within the larger debt-driven environment is going to be very important. So gold's going to perform really well. Um, I wish I had the fractal again. Well, let's say anything that dips in the like 15 is a start, but there's going to be one or two large sell-offs on gold in the next couple of years. That could reach like 25 to 20 to 35%. Whenever that happens, buy. Okay. And honestly, whenever you're making new lows, like would happen here, to retest the block below it, buy. That's the simple thing. Long term, I do believe that gold is gonna be worth around $10,000 per ounce by 2030. So, that's not really something you can, well, you can actually act on it today and just have a good stash of gold into the future. Or if you want to be more novel, you're going to go for the Bitcoin, right? So to jump back to ES, this is stupid now to kind of blindly short it. We're above the levels. We gained all these levels, so yeah, if this is the top, might very well be. It must, for me, it must come down and close below these monthly and weekly levels again. And if we do that, I do think that we do have that we're gonna sell down into this level. If not, we should probably just be bullish here. But I'm not gonna buy anything into this resistance. So yeah, I've definitely lost on the hedge here, but sometimes you win on the hedges, right? So that's just what I'm looking at. If there's anything else you guys want to look at for next week, let me know. I will be doing a little bit of a get around. Oh yeah, here. So long-term treasuries are not showing any strength yet, which is truly, 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 truly concerning. So I really want to see this starting to motor away. The good thing is, and let's do this once more, is we talked about the dollar, right? And we said that stuff is gonna create a low around these lows. We've had these charts where we basically said every time you sweep it on the range, that's a long, and it's doing exactly that. Everyone was in sell the US mode, and apparently everyone is now back in buy US mode. I hope this is gonna last at least for the dollar, because well, I don't really like the euro. I honestly don't even like what the euros are doing, and I don't want to have exposure to the regime of the European Union, because I honestly think they suck at the moment. And there's a lot of things they are doing that make me angry, and they're printing a ton of money, lending a lot of money, and taking casino level risks with pension funds. So like, there's no fucking way I want to have like any bad exposure to the euro, which means where the hell am I going to go whenever I want to have exposure to fiat? Obviously, the answer to me is going to be it's going to be dollars. So dollar pairs are what I want to trade and what I want to have when I'm kind of shorting something, because otherwise I'm on top of that having the devaluation risk of the euro, which I think is much higher than the dollar, except the market wasn't agreeing, but maybe it is now. Yeah, so screw the euros. This is looking nice, in my opinion, and we're having a weekly. We're gonna have to see how that ends up, because obviously the week has to start it. But if we can manage to see this go green, and we're definitely in a deviation here on this momentum indicator. that's gonna, set up to go back to the range highs. Um, and that's potentially a problem for some asset valuation. So keep in mind what's happening here. I remain long ETH, Filecoin, Pengu, a couple of other alts that I don't want to talk about. I'm a little bit protective still on equities because I don't think that a pause necessarily dictates that, you know, there's going to be a true agreement that's not going to make the economy suffer. And then obviously Bitcoin very loosely held. I should be bullish, but it's resistant, so I need to hedge. And by doing that, I kind of give myself a way to protect myself from exposure at the dollar. Well, what the dollar is doing, and then what Bitcoin is doing. So I think that's more enough comprehension, and I hope that was informative. And I hope you guys will have a great week. See you guys next week, and hang on. If you like this content, please sign up with my ref link. Give this video a like, a thumbs up, subscribe, and yeah, guys, peace.